Similarly, Brooke Kissinger's project is truly a high-impact project. I'm so delighted that you're here to listen to this remarkable program and hear about how this program is already being implemented.
Thank you, Dr. Chappell. And before I begin, I'm sure you can all see the trigger warning. I just want to make sure that everyone is ready, that we will be diving into the subject of domestic violence, and there will be some graphic images. So if you need to leave the room or take a pause, please do so. Thank you. My name is Brooke Haley Kissinger, and my thesis is From Victim to Survivor to Thriver, Yoga Therapy, a powerful and effective therapeutic modality for domestic violence survivors. And I had a dream of creating this program. I've got chills all over. And thanks to the robust yoga studies program at LMU, and the support of the most amazing professors and faculty, Dr. Chappell, Dr. Slatoff, and the incredible support, unwavering dedication of Dr. Lori Fazio, many office hours working on this project has come to fruition, and I could not be more excited or grateful to tell you about my evidence-based yoga therapy program for survivors of domestic violence, YTSDV. And now I would like to take you on a journey of how it all got started. As a survivor of domestic violence, I was nominated to the Crime Victim and Survivor Advisory Board at the San Diego District Attorney's Office, the largest victim service provider in the county, serving over 14,000 victims annually. The board included individuals harmed by violent crime who wanted to make the process better for others. As a board member and a survivor, it was a powerful experience to be a part of affecting change. And it was a powerful experience of affecting change, and we created this blueprint for transforming victim and survivor care, which reported recommendations for significant changes in how to respond in trauma-informed ways, areas of needed programs, policies, and legislation, and all through a lens of racial and social equity. The blueprint is the culmination of input from hundreds of stakeholders, victims, survivors, and community members to create solutions. In this blueprint, domestic violence is identified as the most current need to be addressed with available funding, and trauma-informed yoga is identified as a best practice for victim care. As part of the board, we also helped plan the first ever Crime Victims Summit. It brought together the expertise of over 1,300 community members, including service providers, victims, survivors, government stakeholders, law enforcement, mental health and trauma experts, advocates, researchers, and other community members dedicated to elevating the victim voice. I was honored to lead trauma-informed yoga at this summit, and it was a powerful inspiration for the creation of YTSDV. The mission statement for YTSDV is to reduce the incidence, trauma, and stigma of domestic violence while helping victims become survivors and thrivers through a process of healing and empowerment to help transform their trauma into freedom. Some of you may be wondering, what is domestic violence? It's defined as behavior within an intimate relationship that causes physical, sexual, or psychological harm, including acts of aggression, sexual coercion, psychological abuse, and controlling behaviors. Some statistics. 1 in 3 women have experienced domestic violence by an intimate partner during their lifetime. This is about 736 million. DV is by far the most prevalent form of violence against women worldwide. DV against women is endemic in every country and culture, causing harm to millions of women and their families. Only 34% who are injured by intimate partners receive medical care for their injuries. More than half of all cases of domestic violence are never reported to the police. And on average, more than 3 women are murdered every day in this country by an intimate partner. Domestic violence can have devastating consequences to women's physical and mental health, overall well-being, and quality of life, as well as that of their children's. It is strongly associated with mental health problems, including anxiety, depression, and post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD. But there is hope. How can yoga help? Yoga reduces perceived stress and symptoms of trauma, anxiety, depression, and PTSD. And it is also associated with improvements in emotional regulation, feelings of self-efficacy, and quality of life. Post-traumatic growth, or PTG, is the experience of positive change that occurs as a result of the struggle with highly challenging life crises. And in spite of these major consequences that survivors of DV face, many women are able to experience PTG following domestic violence. So, how can a traumatic experience lead to the development of post-traumatic growth? Substantial evidence supports that trauma can be interpreted as a meaningful experience and can lead to PTG. There is a relationship between the manner in which the trauma victim interprets the traumatic event and the development of post-traumatic symptoms. At times, PTSD does not develop after a horrific trauma. And as trauma expert, Dr. Gabor Mate says, trauma is not what happens to you. Trauma is what happens inside of you as a result of what happens to you. My program, YTSDV, focuses on inner authority, self-efficacy, and empowerment for survivors to help them regain their mind, body, and spirit. And as the creator and facilitator of YTSDV, I have seen tremendous growth following traumatic experiences. In my thesis, I go into great detail on the shared characteristics between a mystical experience turned upside down, known as the dark night of the soul, and traumatic experiences, and how they can both share a foundation for post-traumatic growth. For now, I will highlight 2 concepts of this. You can read more in my thesis if you'd like to. First, they both share ineffability. The dark night of the soul and traumatic experiences are ineffable. They are indescribable and beyond words. They both also share a noetic quality, this newly gained knowledge. Many survivors of DV testify that in spite of the fragmented quality of the traumatic experience, they gained from it a new kind of knowledge about themselves and the world, finding new meaning in their life. And as a survivor of DV, I can recollect a complete feeling of emptiness, nothingness, a void, as if I was a fish that had been gutted completely. However, this emptiness paved the way for an unimaginable transformative growth and oneness that could have never been experienced without first experiencing the loss of everything that I knew. It was as if I was broken into a million pieces, into absolute nothingness, but I was able to rebuild those pieces with new pieces and an awareness and a deep sense of dharma or life's purpose that never could have been experienced without first experiencing this. Okay, so Joan Halifax, thanks to Dr. Chappell for introducing me to this book. In The Fruitful Darkness, she says, suffering can also bear the fruit of compassion and the fruit of joy. And our suffering is a sacrifice, but often what we suffer from or suffer through can be a gift of strength, like the shaman's wound that becomes the source of his or her compassion. And in my thesis, I explore this further and also explore the teachings of Thich Nhat Hanh's Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh. Keeping these concepts in mind, I would like to discuss the concepts of YTSDV and the goals. An improvement in quality of life, self-efficacy, mind-body attunement, and empowerment. A reduction in symptoms of trauma, anxiety, depression, and PTSD. To support survivors of DV to move from victim to survivor to thriver and regain their life from a mind, body, and soul perspective. To create a sangha, a community of women who support one another throughout their journey. And in the beautiful words of Anne Voskamp, she says, shame dies when stories are told in safe spaces. And creating a safe space is a very big component of YTSDV. And lastly, to foster post-traumatic growth. YTSDV is for female domestic violence victims and survivors. There are weekly yoga therapy sessions, as well as ongoing weekly drop-in classes and an 8-week structured program for both online and in-person formats. And the program has been running for a little over a year, and it has evolved to include multiple formats. So there is an 8-week structured program, drop-in classes, as well as an extended format, which starts with the support group discussion, followed by yoga therapy, which allows myself or another yoga therapist to hear what is going on in the survivors' lives in real time, in the present moment, and to curate specific yogic practices to help support them in that moment. The program is designed for city justice centers, domestic violence organizations, and community centers. And it is to help all DV survivors heal and move from victim to survivor to thriver. My favorite parts, the mala. Thanks to a generous Engaged Learning grant from Loyola Marymount University, I was able to gift all of the survivors in my 8-week program a beautiful 108 beaded mala, a yoga mat, and 2 blocks. And from the very first session, when we all put our malas on, they became our suit of armor, representing our sacred protection and connection to one another. And domestic violence can be extremely isolating. And the mala allows the survivors to know that they can put on that mala anytime, day or night, and feel the connection of the other survivors and to know they are never alone. And it is also used as an instrument for our breathing and mindfulness practice as I guide the survivors to touch each bead while coordinating with their breath. YTSDV uses evidence-based practices and tools such as applied yoga philosophy, incorporating the yamas and the niyamas, including the first yama, ahimsa, as well as powerful yoga sutras like Laura discussed, Pratipaksha Bhavana, and helping survivors cultivate an opposite mindset, or as my son likes to say, reset the mindset. We help survivors establish a dinacharya, creating small, healthy habits to incorporate into their life to help them with their healing journey. And even taking a 5-minute walk outside in nature or to feel the sun on their skin. We do asana poses like you see here, Warrior Two, as well as Star Pose, Urdhva Hastasana, Garudasana, and other empowering poses, as well as restorative and relaxing poses to help regulate the nervous system. Pranayama is a very large component of the program, working with practices such as diaphragmatic breathing to help calm the nervous system, and kriyas like Kapalabhati to help survivors gain a clear head and to garner the power of their Manipura chakra in building self-esteem and confidence. We use practices like I-Rest, Yoga Nidra, and other practices of pratyahara, relaxation, meditation, as well as mudras, helping cultivate mindfulness so that survivors are not ruminating on the past or worried about the future, but bringing them into the safety of the present moment. We use mantras like the Bija mantra Hum for the Vishuddha chakra, in activating the center for speaking one's truth, which we'll talk about at the end, and cultivating Ayurvedic lifestyle habits. Simhasana. We're going to do a very brief Simhasana practice. So whoever would like to participate, please sit up nice and tall in your chair. This will be Colloquium edition. And Simhasana is discussed in the Hatha Yoga Pradipika as one of the 4 major asanas. Also, lions are seen as powerful, regal, fierce, majestic, and strong. Go LMU Lions. Let us tap into your inner lion by roaring with Simhasana. So sitting up nice and tall, hopefully you can hear me. And you'll place your paws into your lap. And on the inhale, you'll raise the paws, broaden across the chest. And then on the exhale, we're going to stick our tongue out and make the sound. You can also gaze past the tip of your nose in Nasikagra Mudra. So go ahead and lower your paws. We'll do a couple rounds. Ready? Inhale, fill up. Exhale, let it go. I love it. Release the paws down. Let's take another one. Inhale, fill up. Exhale, let it go. Release the paws. Let's take one more. Make it your best one yet. Inhale. And let it go. Beautiful. Just take a moment to notice how you feel. Notice if there was any shifts at all in your state of being. Results. The data that has been collected has been extremely successful. I am in the midst of obtaining IRB so that I can share future results publicly, but based on the incredible results thus far, the program is expanding. The outcomes. My plan and intention is to bring this program to all city justice centers, state government agencies around the globe to support DV survivors. I'm also in the process of creating a teacher training so that this can be taught to more survivors across the world, as well as creating a pathway for survivors who move through this program to be able to teach it to other survivors as they're healing, to create a powerful ripple effect. The 13th century Sufi poet Rumi says the wound is where the light gets in. And Rumi also experienced deep loss and grief, which inspired his beautiful poetry. And my quote, "Through the opposite of light, one sees the light." Oh, before I go back, okay, I'm gonna leave this here and I'd like to share just a little bit of my personal story. So yoga helped me regain my body, mind, and spirit. That's just in case. My body, mind, and spirit after experiencing extreme trauma. And my yoga practice has been there for me throughout my healing process. It has lifted me up and always been there when I needed it most. When I stood up in criminal court to give my victim impact statement as a victim of extreme domestic violence, I stood unified as one strong, empowered woman who was standing in the power and presence of both yin and yang. I stood there in the duality of being a DV victim and also being an empowered woman who had completely transformed her life following unimaginable trauma. And while both sides existed, at this moment, both sides officially became one and signified the entire unifying journey into non-dualism that I had traveled to get to that powerful moment. I paused when it was my turn to speak, unable to utter any word and trembling. I brought my focus to my breath and I silently whispered to myself, "You can do this." I thought about my throat lit up in vibrant blue, the color of the Vishuddha chakra, the center for speaking one's truth. I was even wearing a blouse of this color. I bravely opened my mouth and I felt the words begin to download from a divine source that filled me with strength, hope, and courage. And with tissue boxes being passed around the courtroom, and an indescribable and powerful, uplifting energy and inspiration, I spoke my truth and I set my trauma free. I believe that no matter how deep the trauma, we have an innate ability to heal ourselves. Yoga therapy, Sangha, nature, and helping other survivors has been my secret recipe, and I want to share it with the world. I am forever grateful for the practices of yoga that helped keep me calm, grounded, and supported me in emerging from victim to survivor to thriver. I now have the honor of fulfilling my dharma and using these same yoga practices that helped me as they are now a part of YTSDV. May YTSDV bring a powerful ripple effect of hope and healing for survivors across the world. And lastly, in closing, a dedication to all survivors. May our experiences give rise to powerful transformative growth, and may we help others heal and see their power, beauty, and magnificence. Thank you.